Have you ever looked around and felt like you're playing a different game than everyone else? Like while others are chasing trends, you're wondering why we're chasing anything at all. If you find comfort in questions more than in answers, in meaning more than in popularity, chances are you've felt it. That subtle sense of alienation. Deep thinkers often move through life like observers in a world that prefers the surface. They feel too intense, too curious, too reflective for a culture built on distraction. But here's the twist. This sense of disconnection isn't a flaw. It might just be evidence that you're seeing more than most are ready to see. So, let's explore why deep thinkers often feel alone in a world that worships appearances, and why that loneliness might actually be a hidden strength. Throughout history, individuals who thought deeply have rarely found easy acceptance. Take Diogenes, the Greek cynic philosopher, who lived in a barrel and rejected materialism. He walked through the marketplace with a lantern in daylight, saying he was looking for an honest man. People mocked him, but he wasn't playing their game. He was questioning why the game existed at all. Then there was Hypatia of Alexandria, a brilliant mathematician and philosopher in a time when women weren't welcome in such roles. Her refusal to conform to societal and religious expectations led to her brutal execution. Or Boethius, who wrote The Consolation of Philosophy while awaiting execution in prison. In chains, he wrote about fate, justice, and the fleeting nature of power, a deep thinker till his final breath. Even in Eastern traditions, thinkers like Lao Tzu offered wisdom that went against the current. His Tao Te Ching emphasizes stillness, humility, and flowing with the universe, ideas alien to societies striving for dominance and control. These weren't rebels for rebellion's sake. They were people who couldn't help but see the deeper patterns behind the performance. But why does depth make people uncomfortable? Because it threatens the story we tell ourselves about the world. Most people build their reality on shared beliefs. These beliefs give us comfort, order, and identity. When a deep thinker enters the room and questions those assumptions, it's not just an intellectual challenge, it's a psychological earthquake. It's easier to laugh off the philosopher than to reconsider your life. This is why people who reflect too much often feel like outsiders. They ask the questions nobody wants to answer. What if success doesn't equal happiness? What if morality is more than legality? What if our entire system is built on illusion? These aren't easy conversations. And so the thinker is labeled too intense, too sensitive, too serious. But in truth, they are simply unwilling to accept a shallow version of reality. Modern neuroscience offers fascinating insight into why deep thinkers often trigger discomfort. When a belief is challenged, the brain doesn't always respond rationally. Instead, it lights up the amygdala, the region associated with fear and threat detection. In short, being challenged intellectually can feel the same as being threatened physically. It's not that people don't want to think, it's that their brains are wired to protect their worldview. It's a survival mechanism that once kept tribes united. Dissent used to mean danger. Even today, standing apart means risking exclusion, and so the philosopher is left to think alone, not because their ideas are invalid, but because their presence feels dangerous to the collective psyche. In our current era, the situation has intensified. We live in an age where content is king, but attention is currency, and the economy of attention doesn't favor depth. It favors immediacy. A viral video of a prank gets millions of views. A nuanced conversation about mortality, ignored. Social media is optimized for dopamine, not reflection. The more shocking, the more shareable. In this environment, deep thinkers often feel invisible. Their thoughts are too complex for the scroll. Their questions don't fit into 280 characters. And yet, their role is more crucial than ever. Because in a world losing itself in noise, those who remain silent long enough to listen deeply are rare. and necessary. Even today, we see deep thinkers navigating loneliness for the sake of truth. Jiddu Krishnamurti, who rejected organized religion and spent his life urging people to think for themselves, often lectured to crowds that admired him but struggled to live his words. Alan Watts, who brought Eastern philosophy to the West, often joked that people wanted the message of enlightenment without the work. James Baldwin, the American writer and activist, wrote with searing honesty about race, identity, and justice. His truths made many uncomfortable, yet his words still echo with power. Or Hannah Arendt, who coined the banality of evil and was criticized harshly for suggesting that ordinary people, not monsters, commit atrocities through thoughtless conformity. These thinkers weren't fringe for lack of intelligence. They were fringe because they refused to lie. So what can you do if you often feel like an island in a sea of surface? Honor your inner world. Use solitude to cultivate your thoughts. Write, reflect, create. What feels like loneliness is often a space for brilliance to grow. Choose when to speak. Not every thought needs an audience. Timing matters. Plant seeds, but don't force harvests. Connect with the like-minded. Seek out others who live in depth through books, forums, or small intentional communities. One genuine conversation is worth more than 100 shallow ones. Be the example. Live your values. People may not understand your words, but they will feel your integrity. You may feel alone because you see too much. But don't let that vision become a burden. Let it be your compass. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more wisdom. And wisdom often begins with one person thinking deeply, quietly, courageously. If that's you, you're not behind. You might just be ahead. And that, my friend, is where the future begins.